Welcome to the online series of creative conversations produced by Arts Nexus, featuring practicing arts makers from across far north Queensland, a place to explore the business of arts, the ups, the downs, where we get our inspiration from and what our aspirations are.
And I'm going to welcome Katerini. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your story with us. And I hope to find out a little bit more about where this all began with you. Can you just give us, just in a nutshell, what are you currently doing?
At the moment, I'm about 80% teaching singing, vocal lessons. About 10% is music therapy, and about 20% is performing. I think music has been a part of my life from the very beginning. So then I went on to study voice at the conservatorium, and later on did a master's in music therapy. So I came to Cairns starting to do some music therapy work, but there was a lot of interest around my singing teaching. So I thought I would start that back up again. I'd been doing a bit of that in Brisbane. So that's brought me to where I am today, which is working in 3 schools as an independent instrumental teacher, teaching voice, as well as teaching at my home studio, which you see behind me, 3 days a week. So I was full-time, and now I'm back to sort of about a part-time load with that. Majority of my students are young singers, and that seems to be an area that I'm very passionate and interested about, how the voice changes during adolescence and childhood. So that's been sort of my interest area, and I suppose is becoming more of that because of who comes to see me. Within my therapy, I used to do a lot with challenging behaviours, usually young men in their 20s and 30s, which was really exciting and challenging work. But since I've had a little baby, I've just sort of cut down a little bit on that. And then, of course, the performing. But yeah, I think that answers the question.
Yeah, it certainly does. And so music therapy is a very specialised area, and I imagine, as you said, depending on the clients that present, it must take you to all sorts of places.
It really does. And I think because we're in a regional area such as Cairns, where there are, a handful of music therapists, we don't get a chance to really specialise in one area. So even though I've gotten to work with young men with challenging behaviours, within my other work, I still have a very, very broad range of clients that I would work with, which is challenging in one way because trying to keep up with the research in all these different areas can be very time consuming, but it's also exciting because no day is like the other. So I think that presents its challenges and its positives within that.
Well, you just touched then on working in a regional environment. We're going to get to that a little bit later as well. So I'd like you to sort of pin that thought, and we'll come back to that. Because I really want to take you right back to probably school days, where I imagine a musician of your calibre would have started quite young learning music. But where was it the moment that you thought, I'd like to do this as a job? Like, tell me a little bit about your formative years and how that rolled out.
So I was very lucky to just be involved with music at school. There was choirs happening. I was playing the euphonium tuba. I was playing the piano. So that was sort of happening all through my early years. And it wasn't until I was about 11 that I was singing in the car. And I still remember this moment. And my mum said, "You have a nice voice. Do you want to have singing lessons?" And I went, "I didn't know you could have singing lessons." How naive. I just thought it was something you just did. So it came so naturally to me. So from then on, we sort of started to pursue singing lessons. And well, my dad has a beautiful voice, and music was in my family. My mum was born in Australia, but her parents were both Greek immigrants. And all the 6 kids in her family played an instrument, which is very unusual. So they all played violin, piano, flute, whatever else they were playing. So we were really lucky that was sort of something ingrained within my mum's family anyway as well. And my dad had an interest. And then I went on to studying music in high school at the Young Conservatorium. So I was doing theory, and obviously in Brisbane I was brought up. So I was doing theory and the choir there, and then just kept going with the singing. So I think probably about 11 was when I went, wow, when I said I can have singing lessons. That sort of was the beginning of when I went, oh, I really like this. And it just snowballed from there. My teacher was fantastic. She went, why don't you audition for the conservatorium? And I went, I had no idea you could do tertiary study. There you go. And then it just went from there.
So that's interesting. You're talking about, first of all, your mum recognised your talent. So that you're very lucky to have had that and their influence, because a lot of people discover their talent and they don't necessarily have that around them. So well done to the parents for supporting you to go there. But then you're saying teachers along the way also, so significant adults. Who else has influenced your arts practice along the way?
Look, I think the people I've met, I mean, we had a chat with Paul Chantrill the other week. Definitely that collaboration with him has been inspiring. You know, the music that I hear along the way, it's always taken me on a different path. I was sort of interested in pursuing opera when I was, about 13. I went to see The Marriage of Figaro and went, I want to do that. And so that, took me down that path to the classical range. And then my parents are always interested in me doing Greek music, but I was sort of always a bit hesitant. I did it, but it wasn't in my heart. And then it wasn't until probably about 5 or 6 years ago that I went, oh, I really love this music and I feel at home in it. So there's been a lot of different experiences through my life that have shaped my musical journey, and I'm sure it will never end. And I think that's the beauty of being a performer and a creative person, that you are always learning and you are always growing. So there's been lots of different people along the way that have influenced me.
Yeah, well, that sounds, you're like very fortunate path to have travelled. So you've told me the moment that you sort of realised that you could go off to study. In terms of the moment that you wanted to stay as a professional musician, was there a particular light bulb defining moment where you went, this is going to be my job?
Look, I was thinking about this when I saw my questions, and I feel a bit silly in saying it was never really a light bulb moment. Like, it was just something that I always was doing, and it just seemed like a natural path to take. And I never really thought about everything that would come with deciding to be a professional musician, like having to have your own business and promote yourself and be a business manager and now doing all the IT stuff. So I never really made that sort of conscious decision to go, yes, this is what I'd like to do. It just opened up to me. And I've just been so lucky that the work has been there and I've been able to keep it going and pursue it. So, never a light bulb moment, just always been there. Yeah.
Just doing it. Yeah, excellent. That's a really good point you bring up, Katerini. The business side is often underestimated, isn't it?
Yes, most definitely. And if I did it all again, I would have done a business course at the beginning. And so I knew exactly, like, I've learned a lot through experience. I could probably write a business model for a singing teacher. Not that it's based in any theory, who knows, it's just on practice, but I would definitely, put that as a priority. And that's something that probably should have even been brought up when I was studying to be a musician at the conservatorium and wherever else, that this should be part of what you need to learn about.
Yeah. No, they don't. They do, or they did at TAFE. They certainly made sure that their students knew that there had to be some work behind it. But I talk to a lot of people about business acumen through the work at Arts Nexus, and I was like, there's not even a plumber out there that likes to do the business side, like mechanics, or anybody particularly solo operators. You know, everyone hates that bit when they've got to get home and do the receipts and put them in order and run up to the accountant. So you got to the region. How did you get here?
I got here piggybacking on my then boyfriend, Adam, who is now my husband. I finished my master's in music therapy the year that he got moved to Cairns as a police officer, and I decided to come up to Cairns. And again, it was one of those just go with it decisions that just led to where I am today. And I love Cairns. Like, we are very happy here, and sorry family, but we probably will stay here because we really love the lifestyle and everything that comes with it.
Where were you before?
We were in Brisbane, both of us actually. My husband and I were both born and raised in Brisbane, and both ended up in Cairns.
So what are the key differences you have observed between Brisbane, well, being in a major city versus in a regional setting? Not necessarily to do with your music, just generally, what are the key differences?
I mean, the size, for one. You know, there's, you know, I find in Brisbane there's lots of different pockets of places you could go with the same sort of options of things to do, whereas Cairns, there's, you know, only a couple of pockets of that sort of available. You know, talking musically, because that is a big part of, you know, some of the battle I have sometimes is the availability of music up here to even go and see, to be involved in. And I know there's a couple of choirs, but when I was in Brisbane, I was in a really great chamber choir, and, you know, there's not been anything that same sort of level for me to enjoy up here. So, you know, there's just a few things like that that definitely are different.
I think that's a lot of people are talking about that, the choices between, you know, what you can do on any given day. That's right. Certainly. So inspiration, you've, again, you talk about a lot of luck in your career progression. You were able to meet someone of equal caliber with great musicianship. We got to talk to Paul the other day, and you joined us for that conversation, so I'm already privy to that.
Yeah.
And please watch that podcast if you're out there. That's a nice match.
I've learned so much about Paul, and I've known him for like 7-8 years. Yeah.
I know. We don't often sit and listen to these backstories, so that's why I'm enjoying them. So you got here, and tell me a little bit about that time that you started to establish yourself here. Like, so you just arrived. Did you know anyone before arriving other than your boyfriend?
No. Well, whoever who's looking after my baby now, June and Peter, they're my dad's cousins. They were living up here, so we had them. And that was it, really. That was it. And Adam's friends. So before I came up, I dropped a few emails to a few schools and places and said, I'm coming up, I'm a music therapist and a singing teacher. And I started to work at Maya, which is what I'd been doing during my uni years down in Brisbane, and was doing that, and was ready to sort of dive into being a music therapist and starting my amazing music therapy practice up here. And then I just kept getting phone calls for singing teaching. Can you teach singing? Oh, you're a singing teacher. It's sort of like no one really understood maybe what music therapy was, or wasn't interested. They just wanted to know about singing teaching. So it was a gradual progression. Then I started to go into a school, and then it just built from there. And then from there I went, I need to find a space. So it just sort of flowed on from that while I sort of built up a client base. And then we moved to a house which has this great studio here. So that was something that we looked for when we purchased a house, that it had space for me to teach in, so I didn't have to be running around to all different spaces and schools and things like that. So yeah, this is probably the most settled we've been while we've been up here in 11 years. So we're really happy.
Yeah. And so, that's a very interesting point as well, the introduction of yourself before you came. So you were obviously a bit aware of the lay of the land too in that researching. So it's good, business planning.
Yes.
Market research goes a long way, that's right. So then how did you start to fall into a network of musicians? Because, you can't do it all by yourself, can you?
No. Look, I think from meeting people at the school that were musicians as well, I sort of started to understand, okay, we've got a choral society up here, we've got a few different things. So I went along to the choral society, I met people, the classical music society I'm involved, well, sing at anyway. So yeah, it was just a matter of doing that. And then I auditioned. There was an actual ad in the paper for a wedding singer for one of the Japanese companies here in Cairns. I know. I went, oh my God, they're looking for a wedding singer. So that's me. So I auditioned for that and got the part as a wedding singer. And that I've met a lot of people through that, because obviously we were being accompanied by great pianists around Cairns. So I met people through that. And then it just, yeah. As I then started to teach as well, I needed accompanists for my students. So I put the word out, and then I met Larry Hammond, who's been with me along the journey as well, a great guy, and who is very entrenched in Cairns. So he sort of opened the doors a lot for me in that respect as well. So yeah, you just, I don't know, just met people along the way. And Cairns was very open like that. I felt really part of that community as well, that musical community. I was lucky.
I still remember a very special concert out there at, well, actually, I've seen you a few times, so Whitfield House. That was an amazing group of musicians around you that you had. I've seen you at Paradise Concerts as well, singing.
Yes, of course, with Lee. Yeah, that was another, exactly. I went and auditioned because I met Joy, and she said, Lee's looking for a singer. So I went along and auditioned for Lee. And then, of course, I met Lee, which is another, long-standing friendship and musical connection I've had in Cairns. So, yeah, there you go. You just forget all these amazing little things that happen along the way.
Well, it's interesting because we're really interested in unpacking the whole thing of how you can sustain yourself within a regional community. And there's a lot of assumption from the major cities that it can't possibly be done at this level from a regional setting. I'm a bit privy to knowing that, just having been your audience member so many times. So I've seen you with those collaborations. So I know they're there. And just because they're not necessarily playing concerts every week down the road, that they're still doing their work.
Yes.
So how do you then find the collaboration in a regional setting? Apart from the fact that you get who you get, and so you start to enjoy that no matter what. But what happens in a regional setting for you when you are collaborating here?
I find it's really magical. I think you meet somebody who is looking for the same thing, and you're both very motivated, and it just you're both focused on the same goal, and you both sort of feel like you've found a friend within everything. So there's a lot of it's magic that happens. It really is, and you feel very lucky and that you've found that connection. So you both work really hard, and I find also, because we are in a smaller setting than, say, Brisbane, it's easier to catch up with somebody. Lee was living up the road from me, and Paul was down the road in Freshwater. It's 10 minutes. So, it made it very easy to make those connections. And sometimes I was lucky and someone was teaching at the same school I was, so you could sort of just meet for half an hour and have a little go or something. So, yeah, that is really, I think, is magical. You don't get that in big cities, I don't think, anyway.
That's a great point, that on one hand you're limited to who is here, and then you're limited by the fact that you come across them, there's a bit of chance in that. But then when you do, you get this luxury of time and space and proximity, so all of that. Yeah, right. So what could be seen as a challenge is actually also the benefit.
Yeah. You don't get busied by thinking, oh, is there another this person or that person out there? You just make it work, and you're both motivated. So it's
So that leads me to another aspect of, for me, your business model, even though you're saying it just, you haphazardly came across it, but you, for me, are a great example of a good business structure where you have different outlets. You don't rely on just one thing. So you're not just a singing teacher. You are also music therapist, you're a performer, you're now a recording artist and international touring artist, let's say.
Wow, that's
Wow.
for me. Wow.
It's true, isn't it? You've now performed overseas on a couple of occasions. So let's call it what it is, Katerini. So vocal boot camp is another example. So just talk to us about that as a part of your business case.
Yeah, with the vocal boot camp particularly, or so that came again with another collaboration. Oh my gosh, another wonderful person I met in Cairns.
Lucky I remember them all. It's okay.
Oh my gosh, you're doing really well. You've done your research. So Gail and I met also at the beginning of my coming to Cairns, and she had always also just come to Cairns from, I think it was Melbourne or down south. And she's a speech language pathologist, and we both had a passion for voice, obviously, me being a voice teacher, and Gail starting to find her passion in voice as well. And we came up with the vocal boot camp, which was working with professional singers, teachers, to educate them about voice, how it works, and then give them practical examples of how they can better their voice or keep it healthy for the long run. So that's what we came up with, and that was, keeping us really busy. Again, it was part of our, million fingers in the pie experience of both of us. But yeah, that's sort of sitting dormant for a little while because we've both been so busy in the other areas of our lives. So yeah, but it's still there. It's still something that could spark up again as well.
Well, what I found really interesting about it too is that it's a very niche style of workshop, and to have it available in a place like Cairns to other professional and other sectors is really amazing. And I think people take that for granted. They don't even think about what goes behind a partnership like you and Gail to be set up and ready and available to the corporate world or the educational whatever. And for me, that's a key element of these conversations, is to remind people not to take these for granted. This is, amazing effort on your behalf. To make that happen.
No, look, and that's something that I think a little bit of the pushback has been in Cairns is that because we are Cairns locals now, I suppose, there's a different value on what we do than if somebody was to come in from a bigger place. So that's still a battle, even with my own performing and my work, that is appreciated more sometimes, whereas we have all the qualifications, the right everything, just as valued as those in the bigger sectors. So yeah, that's still something that I find I get a bit of pushback in Cairns, but it's changing. We're changing it.
Yes, one person by person. So now to just drill down a little bit on a personal level, out of all of those things, what would you say, and it's probably hard to pin to one, but your proudest moment, whether that is at a personal level or a musical level? Yeah,
look, I think just getting up and doing my concert that I did in Brisbane in 2012, I think it was, that was a pretty proud moment because I had really worked hard with my Greek music, putting my little group together, rehearsing, booking, getting 300 people there. That was a pretty proud moment, I think, professionally, and it really did start our path down the Greek road, as well as the one in Whitfield House, because that came before it. But and then also, having my baby Joshua, that was a pretty proud moment in my life and has really inspired me to continue to sing. I thought it might change me and it might sort of take me to wanting to be at home with him, but it's really inspired me. No, I do want to sing and I want to keep that going. So yeah, I think two proud moments there.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's a given with your kids, but just watching him, he's now enjoying music himself, isn't he? He's not
Yes, he's a little musician, loves to just play drums, knows what a guitar is. He'll stand in front of a band and go, guitar, drum,
lovely.
piano. So it's very cute.
Yeah, watch out. You'll end up managing his music career. I know where it came from. So, all right, well, what goes alongside proud moments, of course, are challenges as well. And I'm going to assume that there's been some as well along the way. Is there any that you would care to share with us of your, challenges that you have faced?
Yeah, look, I think because I have been such a flow with the flow sort of person, I think a challenging moment was actually when I was as a music therapist in my home taking a client, and I was assaulted by my client. I'm not anything terrible, but it was pretty horrendous. That was, and I had to call the police. So that was a big challenging moment, and actually made me realize that I have to be more serious in a way about how I approach different things, and not just assume the goodwill of people. So that was a really challenging moment, and sort of just changed my perspective of things. So that was hard and sad, and I think also just being at the crossroads a lot in my business, and I've gotten used to being at those crossroads now of where am I going to go, what path am I taking, and it usually comes in a lull, maybe a financial lull or a client-based lull, and you think, where am I going with this now? But that's been a continual challenge. But I think as I've gone along in my life, I've realized that's actually an opportunity for me to take different paths. So that's come a good thing out of the challenge, of which can happen every 6 months or a year or 2 years, it depends.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because sometimes the lulls do make us a little bit desperate. So sometimes we might not make the same considered decision we would when we have the luxury of choice.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering again, does the regional context add to that in a good way, bad way? Like, how does that work for you?
I think in the regional context, I think it's actually a positive thing, because I feel like we have this client base, and just looking at me as a singing teacher, there's not many singing teachers in Cairns. It is growing, but there's not many of us. So if you decide I would like more students, then you just need to sort of put the word out there. I don't know where that goes through, sometimes even just suggesting it to one of my students' mums that's at a dance school, I have space. And suddenly you are inundated again. I've only had to advertise once ever in my whole time that I've been here. I mean, for my performing, obviously that's a little bit of a different story, but for my work as a music therapist and as a singing teacher, I've only had to advertise once. The rest has been word of mouth, and just popped it out there, and it's just come. So I've been really lucky, and I don't know if you get the same in a big city, who knows, but that's definitely something that I've been really lucky with up here.
Oh, I think that works both ways, Katerini. Like, word of mouth is very important, and in a regional setting, that word of mouth spreads very quickly, for good or bad.
Yes, yes.
If you were not a good teacher, that word would also spread very quickly.
Yes, that is so true. So hopefully that means I'm a good teacher.
Well, that's what I'm saying to you, is that, don't take that for granted either.
No, I know. Yeah. And I work really hard to be the best teacher I can. So
yeah, I can. So sustaining yourself, like, what into the future, what are your aspirations? Tell me a little bit about what's coming soon.
Well, I went to the National Singing Teachers Association conference at the Blue Mountains about a month ago, and that really opened me up to realizing that I am a young voice specialist. Well, I wouldn't call myself a specialist yet, but I'm very interested and passionate in young voice. So that has sort of just given me permission a little bit to just keep pursuing that, and to be excited about that path. And I've also just found a passion again in performing. Like, I'm finding I'm getting more sleep now, so I'm feeling much better and ready to sing again. So that is where we're going. We're applying for some of the big Greek festivals around Australia. We're getting sponsorship on a national level to try and get our performing going next year. So that's exciting. I think that the percentages might change a little bit with what I do next year. So hopefully more performing and really honing in on the teaching that I have. And interestingly enough, the music therapy work that I've been doing has been more voice focused. So I find I'm feeling like that's going to be where I take that in the new year. So more about voice in therapy.
Okay, and some more performances on the cards?
Yes, well, I've got one coming up in Cairns on the 29th of November, which is 3 weeks time, something like that, 3 or 4 weeks time, at Kowara Beach Resort at 7 o'clock.
One of our favourites. What a perfect place to perform.
I love it there. So we're doing a Thursday night slot. We thought we'd try something a little bit different to because I know the weekends are so chock-a-block in Cairns. So hopefully that just brings about a nice relaxed feel to our concert. And we're doing a mix because, of course, I do Greek music, but I also do, with Paul, world music. We're very passionate about all world music. So we'll be doing a nice palette of different countries there, songs of Europa. So we're looking forward to doing that. And then, see what happens next.
Lovely. Well, is there any final words that you would like to share with us, particularly about this concept of practicing your professional craft in the regional setting?
Yeah, look, I think you've really got to be a go-getter within your own business, and you have to be your own advocate always. And that can be really hard and challenging because you feel like you're sort of talking yourself up a lot, but you need to be really passionate about what you do. I think you also need to be very educated in what you do. So whatever you do, you have to feel like you have a base in, something that is tangible and researched in when you're talking about music therapy and singing teaching, I suppose. And really, fight for yourself and don't be afraid of knocking on doors and telling people you are. And I think I've gotten where I've gotten today because that mentality of my family growing up has been to work really hard so we don't stop, and I think finding a balance as well is really hard because I do work really hard and I can't switch off because I love what I do. And you've probably seen me up, posting at like whatever silly o'clock because I'm like, I need to just get that out there. I need to do this. So just got to be passionate about it and enjoy it. It's fun. We're so lucky. You don't have to sit in an office and unless that's what you want to do and you love that, that's fine. But for me, I love, getting around and meeting new people and seeing new people and teaching new people and performing and opening up my life with that.
Yeah, well, and thank you. It's for me, I really value the arts leaders we have in the region, and I consider you one of them. So thank you.
Oh, that's really crazy.
See, again, people don't really notice that even about themselves, let alone what else is out there. But I'm really grateful to those that are around in this region that make it an incredibly livable place for me, and a pleasure. So. Look, Katerini, again, thank you. I know that you have a busy afternoon.
Oh, playing with my son, I'm sure. I'll probably be passionate about doing something I want to practice now. But thank you to Melissa, because Melissa, you've been one of the people that I met at the beginning of my journey here too. You've been, it's funny how we sort of pop up in each other's lives at different times. So, I've been grateful to have you in my life because that's just been a great experience, and you've always been so supportive and encouraging of what we do. So that is so invaluable to us too. So thank you for that.
Oh, no, well, back and forwards, we'll go with that. But yeah, no, for me, I was, going back to what you said as well, like when I came to the region to find people like Curtly Lee at Paradise Concerts, and to be able to hear someone like an opera singer and then 2 opera singers together, and and then 3 opera singers together, I was like, wow, what sort of town is this? Is it good? And I still wonder about that, like imagine if we had our own in-house soiree classical group. Just amazing. But anyway.
Yeah, I know. Well, never know.
Things to aspire to, that's right. So, all right. Well, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate that. And I'm really liking your music studio. I'm going to have to come and see it. It's obviously been done up since I was there last.
I'll let you know so I can make sure it's nice and clean.
Yeah. Thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon. And I'll probably see you at the concert. Make sure you book out there, everybody.
Yes, it's going to be great.
So.
Arts Nexus is a capacity building agency working to grow creative people, communities and industries across far north Queensland. Find us at artsnexus.com.au, like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter and share your thoughts.